So hi, we're ready to start our BYOB project here. We've got a barrel from the Vermont Evaporator Company. As you can see, it's a nice clean barrel, no paint on the sides. Nothing's ever been in this one. These are a little bit harder to find if you're looking for one, but again, you can look for Craigslist. Just be careful of what's in it, and we can give you some recommendations for trying to take the paint off if that's something you'd like to do so it doesn't float into your syrup. Most barrels have bungs. This one has two, a large one and a small one. Some don't have any bungs, some only have one. It's really irrelevant. We usually designate the bung area of the barrel as the back. Many people like to have their bungs lined up when they're making their barrels, and it makes it for a little bit nicer presentation. To start with, what we want to do is create a vertical line on our barrel. And to do this, I'm going to use a plumb bob, and I'm going to drag the string across both bungs on the top of my barrel, basically bisecting them, and get my bung almost all the way down to the bottom. Right? I'm on a nice level surface. I know this should be a fairly vertical line. Right? I'm going to then clamp that plumb bob in place. Where I want it. There we go. And I'm going to make a series of lines on my barrel. So I'm going to make a series of lines, half dozen or so. Make sure you get the very end down here at the bottom of your barrel, which would be our front in this configuration, as well as along these ridges, and a nice long line along the back of your barrel. Now, once that's set, you take the plumb bob off, put that off to the side, and you're going to grab the template that comes with your kit. The template is basically giving you the format for how you're going to cut out your barrel in place of your pan. We've already taped ours on today, so you can see what we have is a rectangular shape that is the template for our pan. You're going to cut out on the inside of this this template. You're going to line up on the front and the back the dotted lines in this template with the center line that you just created with the plumb bob. All right, this is going to center your pan on the barrel and also ensure that you can get a nice level pan when we're all done with this project. So I'm going to mark this out, and then I'm going to cut it. How do you want to cut your barrel? There's a number of different ways to do it. You can use an angle grinder with a cutting wheel. You can use a sawzall. You can use a scroll saw or a hand scroll saw. You can use a plasma cutter if you happen to have one around. That's what we use here at the Vermont Evaporator Company. But there's a number of different ways to do it, all of which are relatively easy. If you're using a saw or if you're using a sawzall, you're probably going to want to drill a pilot hole first with a drill using a big hole so you can make your lines. Again, stay on the inside of this template and try to be as close to those lines as possible. So as you're drawing on your template, you'll see that there are actually a couple extra lines on the edges of your template. You want to cut down 1 1/4 inches further from the outside of your rectangle on each of these 4 corners. What that's going to allow us to do is bend part of the barrel and create a shelf for the pan. And that's ultimately what's going to hold the pan in place, or up, I should say, above the firebox. So it's 1 1/4 inches, it's just marked in a line, and you just want to cut down just that additional little bit. And we're back. As you can see, I've cut out for my template the large rectangle. I've also in each corner extended down 1 1/4 inches from each corner down to a little cut on each side here. And I've also taken out a little bit of material on each of the ribs of the barrel. This is going to facilitate our bending of each of these little flaps to make our shelf for the pan. Okay, so we're going to bend our flaps. Again, we're going to try to make a shelf for our pan. At the Vermont Evaporator Company, we have these cool tools. It's a little bender. This is a 6-inch bender. They make them bigger, they make them smaller. Fairly convenient for this task. You just slide this right on here, on your tab, and pull down. Now, and it's just that easy. So if you're inclined to get a set of benders, it's the way to go. But if this is the only barrel you're ever planning on making, that's probably not the way you're going to do this. So you can use a pair of vice grips, you can use a set of pliers, you can use just about anything. One way to do it would be to clamp 2 vice grips here between a piece of wood, and you would actually make your own bender. You could bend it that way, or you could just use your vice grips and slowly just bend along your track to make your shelf. So I bent all my flaps. You can see I've got all my flaps bent. For the next step, what we're gonna do is you're gonna grab your legs that came with your barrel stove quid, and you're gonna set them on your flat surface, on your level surface, approximately, I don't know, about 2 feet apart or so, to where you're gonna hit both the front and the back of the barrel in a relative fashion. And we're gonna set your barrel on your legs. Now you can position them how you'd like. You can see I've got mine not great in terms of centering. If you're an aesthetics aficionado, you may want to move that a little bit, set that up. You can tell our barrel's kind of turned a little bit. We're gonna move that a little bit. What we're gonna do to test our flaps and to position the legs is put our pan on. We're gonna set our pan in position, right where we think it should be. Get her lined up, okay. Seem to be pretty good there. All right, and we're gonna get our level. Because ultimately, again, the important part is that the evaporator is level when we're using it. And we're gonna level it. So we're gonna rotate it to get it to where it needs to be on our legs. I'm rotating it front to back, right? And I'm gonna go this way. And this is where we're gonna actually adjust our flaps. So now, on my bubble, I need to bring this side up a little bit. So I'm gonna take my pan off, I'm gonna move my flaps, I'm gonna adjust it. This side will come down a little bit, that side will come up, and that'll be where my pan will ultimately rest. And now I've got my feet set up. So knowing that I can adjust my pan by myself later with my flaps, I'm gonna take a pointy Sharpie or other type of magic marker, and I'm gonna mark my feet holes for my drilling. Okay, I just finished marking my leg holes. We know we can adjust our pan as we need to from front to back. We're gonna be level from side to side. Looking at my barrel, everything looks centered, right? Take my pan off, get rid of my level. And we're gonna drill our foot holes. Hi, I've drilled my holes for my legs that are on the ground here. One thing to note about these barrel stove legs is that they're not interchangeable. So you would think that the mounting holes would be in the same spot for each set of legs, but they're not. They have to be individually marked and just line everything up before you put them back in. They do come with their own screws and nuts. Easy way to do this is to generally start with screws in your legs, like so, and then insert them simultaneously in your barrel. And the legs will kind of hang out. Then you can reach on the inside and put the nut on without them falling out all over the place. You're going to do this for all 4 screws and mount your legs. All right, so we've mounted our legs on the bottom of the barrel. They are screwed in and set. The next step is to locate and put our door on. So the position of the door is really kind of irrelevant. You'd like it to swing open and stay open and probably not slam on you, et cetera, et cetera. So making it kind of level is okay, or is probably preferable. You obviously want to keep it kind of below the height of your pan, which is inside here. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take a small level. This is on a level surface, obviously. I'm going to draw a line across my barrel on the level line. Then what I'm going to do, I'm going to tip my barrel up. I'm going to grab my door. And one of the nice features about these doors is they do come apart. They have a hinge and you can kind of move them back and forth. And eventually, they will come apart. So you've got your frame and your door. Set your door up to the side. Put your frame on your barrel. Use your line that you just put on there, which overall it's going to be about 16 inches from the bottom edge of your barrel. For the top edge of your frame is where that's going to end up. It can be give or take. Again, this does not have to be super precise. What you're going to do is you're going to eyeball it to center it. And then you're going to mark the inside of your door frame, because you need to cut that out. That's where you're going to put your wood. You're going to mark your holes for your screws at this time. Here's a whole bunch. Don't forget the ones next to the air slider. And then you have to make a little bit of a judgment call here. Your slider obviously needs to be open for air. So your slider is at the bottom of your frame. It allows you to adjust the air intake to your barrel, right? But there's no really good way to know exactly where you need to cut. So what I generally do is mark on the outside of the slider, two edges, mark on the bottom of my frame, and just know that I need to come up a little bit from there. And I'll probably just eyeball it when I take it off. The important part in this is just make sure you don't cut where your screws need to go. Otherwise it's really hard to screw into nothing. So with that, we're going to cut this hole out and then we'll show you how to mount your door. So we've cut our hole for our door. We've mounted the door frame onto the barrel. I'm going to slide the door back on. It comes on the same way it came off. Just slide the hinges in. A bit of back and forth. There you have it. All right. So we have one step to do that's left before our barrel stove is complete, which is to mount the exit flue flange. So let me grab that. Right, you've got your center line. You should have a center line still from the vertical line we drew at the very first step of this project. We're going to line our flange up, eyeball it. We're going to grab our pen again. Try to center it a little bit, side to side, front and back. Obviously you want your spack to sit up straight. Draw your circle for your cutout and mark your screw holes. Now one thing about these flanges is they are not perfectly curved to your barrel. So as you start to screw them in, you'll notice that maybe your screw holes don't seem to be in the right place. I would recommend putting your screws in first, around without the nuts, then tighten them all down. They'll at least be in the holes and you can at least sort of pin them in that way. So let's cut out the final step and then we'll be done. Okay, so we've mounted our flange, our flue pipe flange. We are done with our barrel. I hope you enjoyed your BYOB. And please let us know if there are any questions.